welcome to Final Vortex, where we review all your favourite movie and TV show soundtracks. In this episode, we'll be reviewing Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Once More With Feeling. Not only did Joss Whedon create the show, he was also a head writer, executive producer, and also directed a few episodes on the show itself. On occasion, he would have the cast come round to his house where they'd gather around the piano, which eventually led them to creating this episode. So there's a fairly big cast for this episode. So we have Hinton Battle, who plays the musical demon. We of course have Sarah Gellar, who plays Buffy, Alison Hannigan as Willow, Nicholas Brendan as Xander, James Masters as Spike, Anthony Head as Rupert Giles, and then much more. So as you can see, they've obviously got the main cast basically doing their own performances within this album. So for this episode, I thought I'd jazz it up a little bit by kind of cosplaying Sweet, essentially. In this show, he does wear a blue suit, blue tie and pants, which obviously is switched from the red version, and with a black shirt, but I thought I'd wear my violet coloured shirt because, as you can see, it just matches the artwork that little bit more. The show aired on the 10th of March 1997, and its final episode aired on the 20th of May 2003. The show also led to its spin-off series as an Angel and the animated TV show. The original cast and all the singing themselves. Two of the cast members, however, decided they didn't want to do much singing because they knew they weren't good at singing, so at their request, they accepted it and gave them two minimalistic parts in the show. That way they were included in the episode singing with their own vocals, but not to the point where it made them feel uncomfortable. If you were interested in watching this episode, it's on season 6, episode 7. Anthony Head also portrayed a character in another musical film called Repo the Genetic Opera, which I highly recommend if you haven't seen it, because it's got that same sort of vibe to Buffy where it's very haunting. It's nothing to do with vampires, but it's still got that sort of eerie vibe to it, and if you like them type of films, then I'd highly recommend it. Once More With Feeling follows the changes due to the people of Sunnydale to break out into song due to the demon Sweet, who has come along and is exploring the relationships and emotions within the main characters. There's a song called Under Your Spell, which Tara sings to Willow, where at the beginning it's Tara confessing her love and emotions to Willow, but then later on it gets changed to how she's lost trust and faith in Willow because she puts a spell on her to alter her mind. And then you have the song Rest in Peace, which is more of a rock orientated song where Spike sings to Buffy saying that he's fed up of having these mixed emotions towards her, where one minute he wants to just push her away, and then on the other hand he doesn't want to lose her because he wants to be with her. And the way all these songs are wrote and then sang and directed really fits well in themed with the actual show itself, and then it also shows how well it's portrayed by the characters, and you can really feel and see how all their emotions built up to this one episode are now being opened up and telling their loved ones and whatnot how they truly feel, whereas in past episodes and seasons they've kind of kept it buried inside of them, that way no one knows how they truly feel about one another. So in every song there's a different musical element to it, where it might be rock, pop, jazz, blues, so on and so forth. So because these songs have a lot of different vibes, a good example is I'll Never Tell, which is a song between Xander and Anya, because when you watch the episode, this song has that generic sort of sitcom sort of vibe to it, but then it has a more poppy sort of mellowed out vibe to it, whereas near the end of the song it just kind of breaks out into a blues sort of vibe, and I think that's quite good how it can go from one style to another but fit really well and keeping themed with the song, because it's a back and forth duet. So I really think that when it goes from because it's going back and forth, the music's very up and down, and then when it hits that jazz bit, it really just in my opinion allows their emotions to sort of go off like fireworks as they're bouncing off each other so much emotionally. But then with this song it also links to another episode in the future where it causes them to have more ripple effects within the relationships, where Xander leaves her at the altar, and that episode's called Hell's Bells. And I think the fact that the song's called I'll Never Tell links really well into that episode, because it's more about Xander holding in his emotions towards her than Anya holding her emotions in towards him. So this episode of Buffy has been rated the best musical episode on TV. A lot of other shows have tried and failed in the past. As I said before, this album has a lot of connections to the past series, where characters have had like little tiffs or moments and so on and so forth. All those emotions from those past series all come to fruition in this one episode when they start to open up and break into song and dance essentially. So basically, for anyone who was expecting the cast to be like top-notch singers, that's not the case. Some of them do have good voices to listen to. I'd definitely say if you're a fan of the show, then you're gonna love this album, purely because how connected you are with the show and then how much it means to you essentially. Whereas you might just come across the album and give it a listen and then think, yeah, that song's okay, that one's a bit meh, like he can sing, she can't, so on and so forth. Nevertheless, I think that purely from a fan standpoint of the show, you will love this album. Whereas if you don't really know anything to do with Buffy, then this album might not be for you essentially. So for the climax of the episode, Walk Through the Fire is one of the few songs where it's the entire cast, where they come together and sing in a montage where it's coming up to the finale of the episode, where they're basically going to face against Sweet. I think it's just like a nice moment where like everyone's let their emotions out and then they've sort of like rallied back together again as a unit, and they're going to do what they do best, which is hunting demons and vampires essentially. So when Sweet appears, the main demon, he has 3 goons with him who are his backup dancers essentially, which I find quite funny. His style of music is heavily driven by jazz, blues, and that sort of genre and style. You don't really see him much in the episode. It's more near like the second half of it. But what I do like about him is when you first meet him, as he starts to sing to Tara, he's wearing a red suit, slides, and then his suit turns from red to blue, which I think is a really cool effect. And then within them 2 things being the colour of the suits relate to the colour of the discs you can get, where you can get a blue disc and a red disc, which I thought was a really cool thing to do for this album. So for me in this album, there are definitely songs where I'm going to be honest, there's a fair amount where I'm not too keen on them, and then there's more songs where I definitely prefer them, being the more rock and blues styled music. Don't get me wrong, like I do like poppy songs and whatnot, but I think it's just more, I think the songs I prefer are more drawn to the characters that I prefer in this show. Obviously, one being Spike, so Let Me Rest in Peace is probably my favourite song off the album. Not only because it's like upbeat and has that rock sort of vibe, but because he was always one of my favourite characters in the show, and I always preferred him over Angel as well, because I know a lot of the fans always debate like which one of the 2 is the favourite vampire essentially. Another part of this album that I really like is there's like one random moment in the show, and they've put it on the album as well, which is a song about mustard, where it's just after they've started singing about different theories and stuff about what's happening to them and what's going on, and then Buffy's like, is it just us? And then she opens the window to look outside, and then you see like people on the streets who they must have just come out of like a laundromat or something, or like a dry cleaners, and they're all holding the shirts, just like singing about like how they've got like the mustard stains out essentially. And then she walks back into Giles and just goes, it's not just us. And I thought that was just really funny, and it was just like such a random moment where it definitely just puts a smile on your face, because it just adds like a little bit more humour to the actual album and then the episode itself. So when talking about music, and obviously like we're doing the Buffy album, there's one song that you can't leave out, and that's the title track, which is the theme song itself essentially. Even though it's just all instrumental, Buffy's theme songs is probably one of the best TV show theme songs I've ever heard, even to this day, that I just still love it, even though it's just like with the guitars and whatnot. And yeah, it's just become like such an iconic theme song. I think that everyone just knows it now, and with obviously Halloween coming up, I think that the theme song for Buffy is also the best song to put at the beginning of like a soundtrack if you're gonna have like a Halloween party or something, because as soon as everyone hears it, they're gonna know what it is, and then it'll just get them in the mood for the rest of the evening. So for the vinyl itself, artwork was designed by Mondo. So as you can see, we've got the main title, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, with the cast, the name of the album, Once More Feeling. And then what I love about the inside of the jacket, you have Buffy with 3 vampires dancing behind her in a graveyard. Well, 2 vampires and then some other weird demon creature, which obviously just straight up symbolises, well, to me anyway, Michael Jackson's version of Thriller. I just think it's really cool, like the way they're all like proper into it. She's obviously holding a stake as well. And then on the back we have the title tracks of all the songs. We also have a nice little black and white illustration of Sweet. And then just a little bit more information on about the executive producers and whatnot. There's a bit of information on who created the vinyl and then little special thank you shout outs. And then again, obviously partnered with Mondo and 20th Century Fox. So then we also have like a little booklet which says Slaybill, Sunnydale Theatre. When you open it up, basically like all the lyrics to the songs, and then it basically says who's singing it. So for example, it's got like Buffy, Giles, the group, so on and so forth. I love the fact that the Mustard song, it just says man, they got the mustard out, and then chorus is where everyone else on the street just chants they got the mustard out essentially. Quite funny the way they didn't give him a name, it's just like man. Yeah, it's just quite nice to like, so if you want to know, like if you basically want to learn the lyrics or anything, you can just, obviously you could go online, but if you own the vinyl, you could just go through it and then just learn from this essentially. And then as you can see, we've got that lovely royal blue vinyl disc, which obviously matches Sweets in the show. As I said earlier, you can get this same disc red to match it before he slides in and switches the way his suit looks. When I was a lot younger, I grew up with Buffy. My older brother got me into it. We'd always sit there and watch it together. So this album as well is what got me into collecting vinyls in the first place, because my friend Matt was always like, we were always talking about like TV shows, music and so on and so forth, and then he bought it and he showed me and I was like, I used to love Buffy, like I still love it. And he was like, buy it, and I was like, I don't even have a record player, and he's like, just buy it. So in the end I bought it. Yeah, it's his fault that I've basically started this vinyl collecting journey essentially. So yeah, thanks for watching another episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to do all the good stuff, like, share, subscribe and whatnot. Let me know down below. Would you have rather had the blue disc or the red disc? What was your favourite part of the episode? What's one of your favourite songs off the album? For me, personally, it's definitely that Mustard moment, just hits me all the time. And then Rest in Peace is probably my favourite song off this album. Until next time, guys, always remember, the vortex is open.